remember them well. And thankfully, the majority of the people have lived up to that. Not that we didn't have some difficulty, but those matters we'll treat with. And so the urban redevelopment plan is underway. In the process, Desperados Steel Orchestra, the mecca of steel bands from the hills of Laventille, they can anticipate a pan theater and auditorium where they can host income-earning concerts and shows for people who would come. That All Stars could use it if they want, Renegades could use it if they want, and the entire Pan family could showcase what we created in Laventille, following in the tradition of Dr. Williams, who found them in the 60s and 70s, sponsors for those bands, realizing the great talent that these men and women who created this instrument can produce to the joy and the uplift of the entire world. And that continued in 2021 and will continue into the foreseeable future. Minister Young spoke about, well, before that, Cabinet approved recently a building off the old St. Joseph Road by Parsley Street corner. It will be refurbished, it will be refitted, and it will be purpose-built for 3 cultural organizations of strong Laventille vintage. Malik Folk Performers, Marcia Charles Dance Company, and Northwest Laventille Cultural Movement. Cabinet agreed, and arrangements were made for it to be handed to them. Now it's about raising the necessary finances for its refurbishment and to create a home of culture. Because as you all know, Laventille is not blessed with any large expanses of land, any fishing ports, and all of the natural things that will generate industries, agriculture, and what have you. Laventille has always had the benefit of the strong human spirit and talent. And in recognition of that, we contribute to that development for the benefit of all and the joy of all the people of Trinidad and Tobago and the world. Vaccines. Last Saturday I was on the Beetham. Again, previously, the Prime Minister mandated every one of us in the cabinet in his loving, caring, paternalistic, nation-loving spirit. He said the national program that we are running for vaccines is great. I remember when we had to use the Air Guard to go Grenada to get a few, Barbados to get a few more, Bermuda. We did that. St. Vincent. But the Prime Minister said, and we spent money, we went into the COVAX system. He said, that is not enough. I want every one of you as members of Parliament to establish your own program for your people. And we did that in Laventille, East Mova. We established 3 sites, and we had an all-day operation. And the people responded positively. Many more had their vaccines to ensure that they remain healthy and whole and well so that they can benefit from the outpourings of Mother Trinidad and Tobago as we envisage it. And last Saturday, the people of Beetham called me. They said, look here, some of us wasn't aware of it. We went in, we mic'd every single street on the Beetham for 2 days. And we gathered them together last day. And I visited and I saw young people, young men, young women coming forward. One young man told me his father and mother didn't want him to take the vaccine, but he wanted to take it. He came there, he got his shot, and he quietly went away. Sometimes wisdom is found in the simplest of places, in the nick of time. And out of the mouths and the spirits of babes and sucklings cometh wisdom. Can't get away from that. So we did that. You all will know we celebrated the establishment of a modern, world-class swimming pool in the Laventille area, Sogrin Trace for more specificity. And the Prime Minister recognizing that today, while I think he could swim, but for those of us who can't swim, Tobago man, he must be able to do that. For those of us who can't do that, you could go to that pool now and you would see COVID interfered with the program, but the Coast Guard, who the Prime Minister mandated take responsibility for that plant and to teach the children, the Coast Guard stood proudly aside. I watched 10-year-olds, 9-year-olds swimming 2 lengths of the pool in real semi-professional standing. And we know that one day, We'll produce a national swimmer, and we've produced that in Mova and Laventille already, but a world-class swimmer from that pool, right up in the hole in Laventille. And the Prime Minister said, if it's nice, you must do it twice. He mandated UDCOT again to establish another one for the people of Laventille / Mova in the Coconut Drive area. And that pool, Prime Minister, is now complete and awaiting your arrival, sir. Water looking blue and better than the water in Castarias. Minister Young touched on it. It's close to my heart. When we formed this government in 2020, after we devastated that stumbling, wobbling, slurring woman and a bunch of crooks, when we dealt with them in 2020, and we went back to government, the Prime Minister, with a spirit and a heart for the young people, established the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service. And I was honored to be asked to shape it, to lead it. And I did that until the Prime Minister told me otherwise. Minister Cummins has now gone in, and I sit in admiration on a daily basis at the level of energy and enthusiasm that he has put inside of this. He keeps the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Planning, who is central, quiet, but central to all of this, very engaged on a weekly basis, looking for the ways to get on with the programs that we have established in there so that the youth can benefit from it. Recognizing the value of agriculture in all of this, the youth must be told and must be reminded, including the Laventille youth, that agriculture is a tax-free environment. If you get into the business, the industry of agriculture, no taxes will be met with you. Anything you make is profit. And we went out to the people of Laventille and we told them that, and I can tell you happily and almost boastfully, ladies and gentlemen, that Dr. Rowley again mandated that the seed bank, the National Seed Bank, produce over 1 million seedlings, plantlings, and seeds, high-quality seeds. And we distributed thousands of packets of those seeds all over Trinidad and Tobago, including Laventille. And I can tell you, as I promised you a minute ago, if you go, I can carry you to places in Laventille where the young men showing great interest in agriculture. I could carry you to John now. I could carry you in places in Santa Cruz, outside of my constituency, in the said Sobran Trace. I am amazed at the energy and the attraction that these young men in Laventille are showing for agriculture in circumstances where people think that that is of no interest to them. And they are aware, because I tell them that state lands anywhere that they are available in the country is available to them, because every week in the cabinet we approve leases for state lands for agricultural purposes, and it is available to them. My job as MP is to ensure that every single thing that is on offer for the people of Trinidad and Tobago from this great government is available to the people of Laventille. And they know that. I, like all my member of parliament colleagues, will remember, when you hear the opposition talk, you will wonder if they feel we like them. We gave out thousands of food cards to people during the heights of the pandemic, valued at $500 and something. I sat there on one day and gave out 52 cards to women who came in great need and who appreciated that. And that was not all. That's in addition to all the $5 billion that the Ministry of Social Development makes available to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, including the people of Laventille. But more recently, the Prime Minister said to us, all this pack of this and pack of that and salt and sugar are not good for the human body. The science now understands that. So he mandated that we stimulate the agriculture sector in Trinidad and Tobago by ordering from them fresh, green, healthy produce. And we gave out thousands up to Wednesday of this week, Wednesday. We gave out hundreds of those hampers across the constituency of Laventille West. And all my colleagues and all members of parliament have been doing it. It stimulated the local agriculture sector. It provided healthy support for our citizens, and we are very proud of that. You remember on August the 3rd, there was a major downpour of rain on the city of Port of Spain and around the country. I joined with Member of Parliament Keith Scotland, because I tell you, I don't only see Laventille West, all is Laventille. And he and I went in, stronger than me, better looking than me, but we worked hard whole day. Within 48 hours, we boasted, the people couldn't believe it. With the help of the people and the fire service and everyone else, the corporations, we cleaned up the entire place for them in 48 hours. Thank you, Keith Scotland. And it demonstrated to me the spirit and the power of our people and what we could do going forward. And we do that. As for Laventille, I can tell you that all of the major thoroughfares through Laventille, from the old St. Joseph Road to the road from Chinapoo to St. Babs down to St. Francois Valley Road, St. Babs down to the Greens on Piccadilly Street, all the road going down to from Laventille Road, Rudolph Charles Link Road down into Gonzales, all the roads in our constituency. That road up by you, where Keith Shepherd used to live down there, was the name of it? Not by Pittman Lane up so in Gonzales. Coming down to Augustine Lane, all the roads, all the major thoroughfares, I drove them recently, are well paved and well in order to the joy and happiness. And thanks to the Ministry of Works, we did that. Apart from which, we've had some land slippage issues in Upper Wharton Street. We got the Ministry of Works, the PURE program. They came in, spent some time, did their soil testing, and it is now rehabilitated, and the people could move from Upper Wharton Street into Trumakak with ease and simplicity again today. Similar situation in Stephenville. Joy Benjamin, councillor for the area, would have brought it to our attention, and that too is under construction, rehabilitation as we speak. And of course, Morgan Lane in Harlem, another major road slippage, and we sorted that out for the benefit of the people. We are on the job. We are on the job. As for self-help, up to last week, a woman told me when the rain came, 3 leaks over her kitchen and in the bedroom too. I called the self-help people. The CEO at Self-Help, Mr. Julian, they are usually there for our people, taking applications, processing them. When money becomes available, they give these grants. All of us as MPs have been handing these out over the years. But on this occasion, recognizing the need, Mr. Julian and his team sprung into action, and within days, the problem was resolved for that constituent, and she's a happy camper indeed. Thanks, Self-Help. But that's the way we do it in the PNM. We don't steal your money. We don't misuse and abuse your money. We don't allow our friends easy access to the treasury. And as I told Google today on the radio, I really do wish that I could allow you, like a fly on the wall in the cabinet room, to see how the Prime Minister, how the Minister of Planning and Development, how the Minister of Finance, and how all of us, by virtue of a strong PNM ethic, how we pinch pennies to make sure that not 1 cent is lost. So when I heard that woman today stumbling through an allegation against the Attorney General about what building he have to rent, I had to say to myself, like, she's and running. Johnny and Calamity Jane holding hands. Anyway, she talking today. I know the process we go through is not the cabinet decides this alone, you know. The cabinet approves what a property and real estate services division. When you have to rent a property to the government, they have to decide on it. They know how much per square foot. They compare it with other buildings. They match, they make sure the building is of merchantable and occupiable quantities and quality, so to speak. All of that. So I feel proud. They can't point no finger at me or us at all. They can't. What we do could stand scrutiny. And I could tell you, as I close, I too was quite happy when Minister Gonzalez called me to tell me that the booster at Pitch Road that Minister Young alluded to was completed. There were 2 pumps there, all the pumps that would sometimes break down, and I would know when they break down. I would know when the booster station in Wharton Street breaks down, because I start getting calls from Breeze Hill, from Snake Valley, from St. Barb's. We can't get no water. I call Wassa, they will now have to repair it. It takes them a few days. Sometimes they have to get a pump from somewhere. On this occasion, the minister decided that they would do it differently. And what happened? They put in 2 new submergible pumps alongside the 2 older ones. They modernized and computerized the system. They put in modern electrical arrangements, and now we have a finely refurbished booster station. 1 resident from Mary Road, which is now in Stuart Young constituency. I represented there as Laventille East Movers MP. She came to that forum and told us they had trouble because they live over 5 of the level. And now with this pump arrangement, she said water busting pipe up there. I know if Kamala hear that, she will want to go and take up residence in Mary Road, because that's all she know. Pipe, pipe, and more pipe. Folks, I thank you all very warmly. I wish I had more time. But I've only given you a hint, a little insight into the love and the care and the concerns we have always had for the people of Laventille. And I conclude by saying, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, and we must prevail.
That's the strangest man I've seen. And the rest of them having the mark of a Nazarene.
Trinidad and Tobago, the PNM is on the job for each and every one of you. Your Member of Parliament for Laventille West reporting to you on his performance and the PNM's service to you, ladies and gentlemen. May I take a quick moment to recognize the Minister of Public Utilities, the Honorable Marvin Gonzalez, the Minister of Digital Transformation, the Honorable Senator, the Honorable Hassel Bacchus, our Attorney General, the Honorable Faris Al-Rawi, our Minister in the Ministry of the Attorney General, Senator Renuka Segram Singh Suklal, Minister of Communications, the Honorable Simon de Nobrega, and ladies and gentlemen, our Lady Vice Chairman and the Minister of Planning and Development, whose work must not go unnoticed in the preparation of Budget 2022, the Honorable Camille Robinson-Regis. And while Minister Robinson-Regis played an integral role in the preparation of Budget 2020, our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, delivered it in the Parliament. Ladies and gentlemen, he has served as our Minister of Finance for the past 6 years. Sorry, Prime Minister, we in the PNM, we don't accept donations. Ladies and gentlemen, he has served as our Minister of Finance over the past 6 years and during some of the most tumultuous times the world over and here in Trinidad and Tobago. He currently serves as our party's chairman. He is the Member of Parliament for the constituency of Diego Martin Northwest. Northeast, of course. Diego Martin Northeast. My apologies. And ladies and gentlemen, he has delivered a most comprehensive budget that has received positive reviews from Pan Trinbago Blind Welfare Association, the We Care Deaf Support Network, the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce, and the CEO of AmCham, Mr. Nirad Tawari. Those are just some of the persons and some of the agencies that have given such a favorable rating to this Budget 2022. Would you please welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Trinidad and Tobago, the Minister of Finance, the Honorable Colum Imberg.
The rivers flow to this naked eye, bringing fair and plain, but also a brand new style. And of all these rivers that shape this land, two mighty ones moved like a sculptor's hand. And today those hands across the land, man, is still landscaping. And there's no doubt we can work it out, there is no escaping.
Thank you very much, Laurel. I noticed that you and my colleague, the Honorable Minister of National Security, forgot they have a curfew. So, Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, political leader of the People's National Movement, my colleague in the Parliament, the Honorable Stuart Young, Minister of Energy and Member of Parliament for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West, and my honorable colleague again, Mr. Fitzgerald Hines, the Member of Parliament for Laventille East Morva or West, Mr. Hines? Just testing you. All my colleagues from the Cabinet, all distinguished members of the PNM Executive, all those who are listening and watching this program, good evening. Earlier today, the Leader of the Opposition, as Mr. Hines told you, didn't do very well. I spoke for 3 hours and 45 minutes, I believe. 48, okay, Mr. Young was counting. All right, 4 hours. I spoke for 4 hours. She barely spoke for 2 hours. And, you know, I expected a little better than that. And in that 2 hours, she just rambled and brambled. There was no substance. In fact, what I find with this current opposition, they seem to be in a time warp. They don't understand that things that the voters have already discredited and discounted and rejected no longer relevant. I heard today a boast about the dollar for dollar program. I don't know how many of you are old enough to know what the dollar for dollar program was. That is something they come up with in the 1990s. And when we introduced GATE, that wash away that dollar for dollar program. That was an elitist program. You had to have the first dollar in order to get the second dollar. So it was a program designed for the rich, because poor people, obviously, if a university program is going to cost you $20,000, let's say, that's the fees. Where are you getting the first $10,000 from? That was the UNC program, dollar for dollar. We washed that away with GATE, and we made education free for everyone, regardless of status. So when I heard the goodly lady speak about dollar for dollar, I just shake my head. They're in a time warp. And lie after lie after lie after lie. I don't have time. It's a pity it have a curfew. Otherwise I'd read out all the lies. But I'll deal with that later in the budget debate. What I also noticed is that the other persons who spoke after the leader of the opposition from the other side were even weaker than she was. There's nothing to respond to. In fact, after she finished, I concluded that I could wind up the debate now, with nothing to answer. Let's get up and say, I beg to move. Let's move on with the appropriation. And that is what we in the PNM have to do. Don't study them. They are spent force. We are the government of Trinidad and Tobago. And we have outlined a very ambitious program for year 2022. And all ministers are on notice. This budget statement is your work program for 2022. And you will be judged at the end of the year, as I am. Every year, every budget speech, they say, Imbert say he will fix agriculture, and he didn't. And Imbert say he will deal with health, and he didn't. Well, you see, next year, you will be judged by the population. So I'm asking every minister, pay attention to the work program that's in this budget speech, and let's get it done. We are a performance-oriented party. I just want to make a few points about what's in this year's budget. This year, we sought to deal with as many sectors and as many groups as we could. As we move the country from its current situation, we are now recovering from COVID, and that is why the theme of the budget is resilience in the face of a global pandemic. I thought that was a most appropriate theme because the country and the government has shown how resilient we are. We are a resilient party, a resilient government, a resilient country. We faced this crisis. This is the first time, as we say in the budget speech, in almost 60 years that any government has had to face both an economic crisis and a health crisis at the same time. It's a serious, serious challenge that we in the PNM were faced, and we have come out with flying colors. And I personally want to congratulate the vaccination team, the public health team, because they have faced so much criticism and abuse over the last 18 months. But if it wasn't for the health team, headed by the Prime Minister, followed by the Minister of Health, the now Minister of Energy, Attorney General, and I believe Minister Hines, you in that now too, the health team have kept it together, carefully publishing public health restrictions when they were required, carefully doing the best that we can for the population, protecting our citizens' health. That was first and foremost, and also seeking to possibly could without endangering the health and lives. This and how come you wouldn't let bars open and what go and see? I take my hat off to that team, our health team. And then the performance with vaccination. We are well ahead of many, many other countries in the world, in the region, way if it becomes necessary. That too was the work of a team. The Prime Minister, the Minister of Energy, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, man behind it all. And we now have a variety of vaccines. We have Sinopharm vaccines, we have Pfizer vaccines, our entire population. And I want to make a special appeal now, because the only way the government can reopen the economy in full is if people get vaccinated. Vaccination is the key to economic and social recovery in this country. And I heard Mr. Hines talking about his efforts in terms of going into his constituency and promoting vaccination, and I commend him for that. And all of our MPs. We had a decision to make. If I had listened to people who don't have our best interests at heart, who don't have the public interests at heart, who really want us to take stupid advice from them, mash up this country, we would have slashed the national budget for 2022. In fact, for weeks before the budget was delivered, that was the old talk that you were reading in the newspapers and on the radio and seeing on television. They have a whole side of them, about 7 of them. Haters, I call them. They bring out about 7 of them. And they use them to try and influence public opinion. So they have them on TV. And this is what should be in the budget, and that is what should be in the budget. But the worst piece of advice that they try to give us that we will not take is to cut public expenditure to meet revenue. And let me explain, and don't forget devaluation. Well, we ain't taking them on with this devaluation stupidness again. Because if we had listened to them, they told us back in September 2015, the advisors came telling us what to do. They said, devalue the dollar 10 to 1. You say, why? How is that? They say, if you don't devalue the dollar 10 to 1, within 6 months, Trinidad and Tobago will run out of foreign exchange and the whole country will crash. Well, 6 years later, we have US $7 billion in foreign reserve. 6 years later, not 6 months. We're not stupid, because we know what a devaluation will do to those who can least afford it. The rich man could handle it, you know. But the poor man, if you devalue the dollar 10 to 1, the cost of living will go up by over 50%. Real wages will go down, purchasing power will go down, people will suffer. Are we not stupid? We're not taking that stupid advice. So that was the devaluation advice. So we decided to try and maintain inflation and try and keep it below 1%. And it has remained at 1% or below until just very recently it went up to 2%. 2%. There were times when we had an oil boom that our inflation was 12 and 13%. Some of these countries around the world, if you look at inflation, in some countries in our region, 15, 20% inflation. We have had 1% inflation for 5 years, and now it's 2%. And the only reason it's 2% is because of worldwide shortages of basic commodities and increased freight cost. And we don't believe that that will last forever. And we expect inflation to go back down to below 2%. But if you listen to them, there will be a 50% inflation. But coming back to the point I'm making, they keep crying at us that we must cut expenditure to match revenue. And it's an important point that I need to make. Because in the pandemic, we had got our revenue up to $47 billion in 2018 and 2019. 47 billion. We are almost close to balancing the budget. Because we run about a $50 billion economy, give or take $1 billion or $2 billion, depending on the circumstances. So we were at 47 and we were closing the gap. And then came COVID. And COVID knocked our revenue back down to the 2016 level. You know when oil went down to $25? COVID knocked us back down to 35 billion. So we had a choice. Do we keep people in jobs? Do we keep providing health care free of charge to our citizens? Do we keep providing education free of charge to our citizens? Do we maintain the cost of living at a reasonable level? That's the choice we had. And if we had listened to that stupid advice and say, where they tell us, cut your expenditure to meet your income, we'd have had to taken out $15 billion out of the national expenditure. You know what that means? 20,000 public servants going home. 20,000. You have to pay for health care. You have to pay to travel on the bus. You have to pay to travel on the ferry, the full price. You have to pay for water and electricity, the full price. Nothing will be free. Everything will be full price. LPG would be full price if we listen to that stupid advice. And 20,000 public servants would have gone home. We're not doing that. So that we had a decision to make. Do we keep the momentum going in the economy as we try to recover and get us back up to balance, get back up to 43 billion, 45 billion, 47 billion, 50 billion? Because once we do the transformation that is in this 2022 budget, we will get there. Because we were almost there in 2019 and we will get back there fairly soon. So we have rejected that advice. And that is why we have a $52 billion budget, which is just about what is required to keep this country on an even keel and to keep the vast majority of people in jobs. And you know, some of the people who talk is a set of business people, you know. And who do business people depend on? Consumers. And how does a consumer get money to buy something in a store? From his wages. And how can he have wages if you just send home 20,000 of them and retrench all of them? It is such a foolish statement outside there. Because if we were to cut expenditure down to 35 billion, which is what they want us to do, and if we went to the IMF will tell us to do that too. Thousands and thousands of businesses would just close down. Because they would have no customers. And I want the business people to hear that. Stop this foolishness. And stop following this fake pseudoscience. We have a macroeconomic plan. We plan to balance our budget. We were balancing it. By 2021, if COVID had not hit, the budget would have been balanced this year. It knocked us back 2 to 3 years. So we're going again until 2024, and our medium-term fiscal consolidation plan and our medium-term macroeconomic framework takes us to a balanced budget in 2024. And with your help and with the hard work of all these ministers, we will get there. We will balance our budget. And we will not have to punish the poor people of this country, which is what they want us to do. And let me just give you some indication of the items that we're going to be spending money on. On education, $6.8 billion. And that is for the University of the West Indies, the University of Trinidad and Tobago, for GATE, for COSTAT, for all of the various technical colleges, for the secondary school system, for the primary school system, $6.8 billion. On health, $6.4 billion. And that expenditure has gone up a bit in the last year or two. It's gone up significantly, actually, because we have made sure that we have not sacrificed our health sector, because we understand that the only way for this country to come out of COVID was to keep that health sector alive and feed it with the resources that it required, which we have done. Which is why we have $6.3 billion for health. National security, very important. And the national security figure, these figures are all combinations of things. For example, the health figure is the Trinidad expenditure and the Tobago expenditure combined. Education and training is primary, early childhood, primary, secondary, tertiary. That's what that total figure is. National security is police and all the services, fire, prisons, defense force, coast guard, army, etc. 5.6 billion, so it's all combined. National Security Council, Strategic Services Agency, and so on. Works and transport, 3.5 billion. Public utilities, 2.7 billion. Local government, 1.6 billion. Agriculture, 1.2 billion. And housing, which we finance off budget, and which also has a revenue stream of its own when it converts people who are occupying HCC houses, converts them from what is called a license to occupy, which is more like a rent, into a full mortgage, and they get their mortgage from TTMF. That gives a revenue stream to the Ministry of Housing, which we need to work on very seriously in this year, 2022. I would also say that we, as I said, we looked at what people were saying. We recognize with COVID, and this is a point I think needs to be emphasized. One of the greatest problems with COVID was unemployment. Because when businesses were closed, after a while businesses were using their retained earnings and their savings to survive. But they could only do it for so long. So there was a fallout in terms of unemployment. As the economy reopened, some sectors remained open right through. Food, the food sector remained, food manufacturing sector I mean, remained open right through. There were essential services that remained open right through. But some were not. Some were shut down for some periods. Some were allowed to open for brief periods. Some were closed for a long time. So for example, the hospitality sector was profoundly affected. So that in going forward now, to make sure as we go forward, to make sure that as many ordinary people are in jobs, are employed, have a salary at the end of the month or the fortnight as the case may be. What's the solution to that? It has to be that you have to assist the businesses that employ them. This thing is common sense. Employed people are employed by somebody. They're employed by the employer, a businessman or a businesswoman. And therefore, in order to get people back on their feet, get income back in their pockets, get them back into some sense of stability, we have to assist the businesses that employ them. Because if we don't, there's nobody to employ anybody, and everybody will remain unemployed. This is the ABC of economics. So I thought I'd spell it out for those other foolish people who are saying the budget only helps business people. Of course, the budget helps business people, because that is to help you, the ordinary man, to keep your job. But that is not all we did, because the PNM is all about people. In the budget, we have announced the reduction in taxes on a number of basic food items, and we did it very scientifically, very, very scientifically. After a lot of consultation, you will have seen a list published over the last few days of 45 of the most commonly used food items by people at the lowest income level. 45 of them that we have taken value-added tax off. And that will become effective on the 1st of November. And when you look at the basket, it's oil, cooking oil, for example. It's canned food. And I heard a set of old talk about that. Only a rich man will quarrel about that, because he doesn't understand that poor people have challenges with refrigeration. Not everybody have 2 fridge and freezer in the house. So therefore, your ordinary man has to deal with non-perishable goods. You see, these people are not connected to the ground at all. So that is why we have to assist people with canned food. And I have to hear stupidness about canned food bad for your health. So what are they going to eat? They're going to go and buy 5 fridge in quarts and go and fill it up with fresh food. These people are not serious. So that in the 45 items that we've taken VAT off, we have been very careful to look at the basic items that a child would take in their lunchbox to go to school, that a construction worker would take in his bag to go to work on a construction site, that a factory worker would take to go to work on the factory floor. We have carefully selected the basket of the most common and the most basic foods that people would use. I hear somebody complaining that I hear somebody complaining that we took VAT off a ham slice and cheese slice. Well, what is the most common sandwich in Trinidad and Tobago? It's a slice of ham, a slice of cheese, and 2 slices of bread. People foolish, yes? And I would just end by saying that we consulted widely. We consulted with every group, and one of the groups I met with, and I will end with this, was the trade union movement. I tried to meet with them on several occasions, and they had a reason why they couldn't meet. They couldn't get their members together. It wasn't convenient. I said, oh, no problem. So we kept giving them dates, and eventually, in the week before the budget, I was able to have a virtual meeting with the trade union movement. They appointed Mr. Ansel Roger as their spokesman. So you had NATOC there, JTUM, FITUM, all the various large trade unions, all in the meeting. And they appointed Mr. Roger as their spokesman. I gave him the floor. I said, could you tell me your budget recommendations, please? So he pulled out his paper, he had a long thing. The first item that he said was the most important thing was the resumption of collective bargaining. He listed all the collective agreements that had been left in abeyance in all the various trade unions, in all the different sectors of the economy, and he said, this is the most important thing to us. You must authorize the chief personnel officer to resume discussions with us towards concluding all of these collective agreements. He listed out about 25. I took note of that. I said, what is item 2? He said there are some nurses who are in unsatisfactory temporary contracts in the RHAs. They can't get gratuity, they can't get pension. You need to help the nurses to get regularized. Take note of that, item 2. I said, what is item 3? You need to finalize the pension plan for daily paid workers. That's going on too long. Right? Item 3. And what are the other items? Or the other items were things that could not be settled easily. Okay? For example, they don't want any restructuring of state enterprises until we have consultation and collaboration with the trade unions. I tell them we'll get back to you on that. I put all 3 things in the budget. Go in the speech, you'll see it. We're going to resume negotiations with the union. We're going to regularize the employment of the nurses. We're going to finalize the daily paid pension plan. They say the budget is a con job. You think it's easy with them? You can't please anybody in this country except the right thinking people, which is 90% of the population. So my message to you tonight is don't be fooled. The 90% of the people in this country are highly intelligent. We have a highly intelligent population, a highly educated population, a sober population, a right-thinking, balanced population. Don't fool yourself. They know that what we are doing for them is the best that could be done. They know the PNM has them in mind. They know we care for them, and they know we are going to rescue this country. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Long live the PNM, and shall it prevail.
Ladies and gentlemen, the fact remains that the budget knocked the socks off the naysayers, and that is that. The PNM is about people. Thank you very much, Minister of Finance, Colm Imbut. Now, ladies and gentlemen, never before has a Prime Minister had to lead this country through a pandemic. Never before has a nation trusted a leader and his team to steer them safely through these ominous times. He led the charge to protect each and every citizen in this country. He led the charge to secure vaccines for every single citizen, 12 years and over, in this country. During his tenure as chairman of CARICOM, he advocated widely at every international forum for vaccines for every person in this region. He has done the most with the least. He is the right leader at the right time. He has worked tirelessly, and history will look favorably upon him, ladies and gentlemen. I now ask you to stand, ladies and gentlemen, as we Wabego, your Prime Minister, the Member of Parliament for Diego Martin West, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley.
Even though the road is long, no matter what come, I know I'm gonna make it. Yes, I'm gonna make it. Even though the road is long, no matter what come, I know I'm gonna make it. Yes, I'm gonna make it.
Remember the days of tossing water anytime that you have to.
Thank you very much, Senator Laurel Lizamo. Tonight, we go straight into the reason why we're here. We are limited by time, and there's a curfew in under an hour. So we will leave here in a few minutes' time. But we are really here to keep our PNM tradition going. You would know that when we were in the opposition, we launched this arrangement where, as we responded to the budget of thousands of you would come there to hear what the real story about the budget, to appreciate whether we are doing good or whether we are doing badly. You need to compare us with the other people who are in the pandemic in the world. Otherwise, today you would have been led to believe that all your troubles in Trinidad and Tobago is as a result of Rowley and Faris and Stuart Young. Because the entire presentation of the opposition leader, that idle sleeping woman, is that it is all about Keith Rowley, it is about Faris, and it's about Stuart Young, and of course the PNM. But I'm accustomed to that. I've been called all kinds of names, some of the worst by her. Now I'm being called dictator. I'm being called, I don't want to tell you, because I don't retaliate, because I have the ability to absorb and survive. I can absorb punishment. So tonight, I did a little bit of research, and I want to share it with you to tell you where we are, and then you look and you tell us if in fact, you heard today a whole lot, a story about how badly we were doing, and Imbut was the worst, and the economy was collapsed as usual, and everything in Trinidad and Tobago gone to hell in a handbasket because of the government and the Prime Minister and a handful of named ministers. Let me take you across the world with respect to economic growth. You heard today a lot about economic growth and lack thereof. In the countries I'll mention, I'll tell you what their economic growth was in 2019 and what it was in 2020 as a result of being buffeted by a pandemic that we are into. Canada was doing 1.86 growth in 2019. That fell to minus 5.4 in 2020. France was 1.49, it fell to minus 8.3. Germany was doing 0.56, it fell to minus 4.9. Italy was doing 0.29 of growth, it fell to minus 8.87. Japan was doing 0.27 growth, it fell to minus 4.83. The United Kingdom was doing 1.43% growth, it fell to minus 9.92. The United States was growing at 2.16 in 2019, that fell to 3.51 in 2020. All of that as a result of these countries having to respond to the very virus that we are responding to. And there's no virus up there, there's no Rowley up there, there's no Imbut up there. They have the government according to their own nationalities. But today, if you listen to the opposition, everything that we are going through today that is challenging is as a result of. And then ridiculously comparing these trying times with when I was prime minister and what I do and what I didn't do. You were not prime minister in a pandemic. You were not prime minister when the treasury had nothing in it. As a matter of fact, the population handed us the government in September 2015 when you crashed the country because oil price started to fall in 2014, gas price started to fall in 2014, and instead of doing the sensible, reasonable thing, which is to restrain your spending and your thieving, you had record-breaking spending, and by the time you handed us the country in September 2015, she had the gall to come and say, we came in 2015, and by 3 months later, we were taking money out of the heritage program. The reason, if had we not done so, public servants could not have been paid, bills could not have been paid, the public debt could not have been paid, but we had to manage it. And telling us it is something that we did in those 3 months that caused the country to be where it was in 2015 and 2016. Thank God for the PNM coming in. Because had the government not changed in 2015 to put serious restraint managers in office, Capo would have spoken pipe of this country from 2016 onwards. So have no fear, you are in good hands. So of course, but let's come to the CARICOM region. I just told you about the developed countries in the world. Let's come to our neighbors in CARICOM that have so much similarity with us. Antigua was growing at 3.35%. In 2019, 2020, negative 17.27. Bahamas was growing at 1.22%. 2020, the negative 16.28%. Barbados was growing at 0.1% in 2019. 1 year later in 2020, they were negative 17.6%. Belize was growing at 1.79%. 1 year later, 2020, they were negative 14.09%. Dominica was growing and humming along at 7.5%. 1 year later, they were negative 10.45%. Grenada was doing 1.9% growth. 1 year later, in 2020, they were negative 13.46%. Jamaica was growing at 9.7%, at 0.97%. 1 year later, in 2020, they were negative 10.30%. St. Kitts Nevis was growing at 2.84% in 2019. 1 year later, in 2020 pandemic, they were in negative 18.65%. And only Guyana, with this unusual situation of coming into becoming an oil-producing country in a big way, Guyana was the only CARICOM country that maintained growth and grew at 43%. Because Guyana started to get serious oil money coming into the economy, reflected in that as growth. And Trinidad and Tobago, we too, a hydrocarbon economy, falling gas price, falling oil price, we had to hold and stabilize first. And today you hear somebody come telling you about it is not COVID. The country had collapsed before COVID. Yes, it had collapsed before COVID because when they were in office before, they were leading us down a road to collapse. We are in nowhere collapse, my dear. The rating agencies has maintained our credit rating in the most difficult situation. We have shut our economy down twice, shut it down and stay home. There are public servants who have not been to work now for almost 2 years, have been paid every single cent. Every public servant who's on the government payroll retained their earnings during that period. Paid from what? We're talking about the effects of COVID. Trinidad and Tobago, our school children have been home for 57 weeks of school time, home. Today they made that a big issue. Oh, calamity. What calamity? It's the response to a nationwide, worldwide threat to life and limb. 57 weeks in Trinidad and Tobago, but that's the same number of weeks. Children in the United Arab Emirates, one of the richest areas in the world, their children were home too. 57 weeks. The Bahamas children were home 57 weeks. Mexican children were home 63 weeks. Brazilian, Korean children were home for 68 weeks. Brazilian children home 69 weeks. The same in Bahrain, in the British Virgin Islands, and in Chile, 69 weeks the children are home. Costa Rica, their children been home for 70 weeks. El Salvador, 71 weeks. Indonesia, 73 weeks. Panama, 73 weeks. And India, 73 weeks. Children home trying to save their lives from this killing pandemic. But in Trinidad and Tobago, you have these political ambitious jokers who believe if they tell you any foolishness, personalize our business, denigrate people, praise themselves, talk rubbish and tell lie, you would believe that they're better than the government of Trinidad and Tobago. No way, we are the PNM, and thank God for the PNM at this time. Another big point they were raising today, we had to borrow and we have debt. They should be the last people talking about borrowing and debt. Oil prices were well above $100 a barrel. And she also praised herself for putting money. It must have been her personal money that she dreamt of. She was putting money in the Heritage Fund. You don't put money from your pocket in the Heritage Fund. There's a law that says when money goes into the Heritage Fund and how it goes in there, and it's all tied to the price of oil. If the oil price rises above a certain budgeted price, the surplus, you are required by law to put that in the Heritage Fund. And they were not doing that. They were spending and thieving like mad. And when they were required to put the money in the Heritage Fund, they went and borrowed money to put it in the Heritage Fund. As a matter of fact, what that meant, they were borrowing money to put it in the savings account. At the time when oil price was at its highest. So today when you hear talking about, I put money in the Heritage Fund, I say, no, you take money out of Trinidad and Tobago. That's what you all did. Take money out of the treasury. That's what you all did. And we, facing a situation that I stand before you tonight, I am the only prime minister in the history of Trinidad and Tobago, this independent country, that had to manage your affairs in a pandemic where your life, your children, your elderly people, everybody was at stake. The world shutting down around you. You had to close the airport, the hospital in danger of overflowing, doctors and nurses working 25 hours a day, and we have to also find food for those who couldn't feed themselves. Thank God we were able to make it, because we always said we are going to make it. We are not part of that system that says that all fall down and all collapse. It doesn't matter how high the mountain is standing between us and success. We say we are going to make it. When we shut down our country and asked you to stay home last year, April, we had no idea what this virus would have done to us. We were looking at Italy and Spain and elsewhere and seeing the thousands of coffins. I was drawing to your attention that in one part of Italy, they had to call in the army to help them to bury dead. New York, they were digging trenches on an island in New York to put bodies in black bags because they couldn't manage them in the crematorium. That is where the pandemic was holding out to us. We shut the country down, we stayed home. And as we saw a bit more of the virus and got a bit more information, we came out slowly and carefully and cautiously, and we're still doing that. But these people today spoke in the parliament whole day, pretending that we are not in an extraordinary situation, because the pandemic is married to economic decline. And of course, whenever they hear anything going wrong in the country, Man, they're jumping up and down and saying, hey, hey, wele, 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 wele. We prefer that. We prefer that. So as we're coming now and trying to bring our children out to school, you would think they would want to help with that. 57 weeks they're home. They're telling you, no, leave them home. Leave them home. As if that is something good. It is oppression. It is division. No. It is the population, all of us in this. And some of us making this choice, some of us making that choice. And while they're accusing the Prime Minister of being a dictator, it is choice that is causing the division and the difference. Choice. In a dictatorship, you do as you're told, and all of us doing the same thing. There is no such thing as choice. We tell parents, we are with you. But if you choose to keep your children home because you have some inordinate fear of the virus, okay, that's quite all right. That's how you feel about your child. I can't tell you how to feel about your child. We make provision for that choice. But we say the national policy and the national effort at the level of the government and those other parents who have a different point of view, vaccinate your children, bring them out to school, and let us together overcome the threat and the restriction of the virus. If you choose to keep your children at home, how you could blame me for that? You want to blame the parents who vaccinate their children? No. It is choices we have. It's the same thing. I saw somebody writing in the paper, somebody who you thought was intelligent, saying, I am not going to be vaccinated because I am healthy and COVID don't interfere with healthy people. It's sick old people. And I'm saying, this is a writer, a reader. You have your own COVID. I mean, look at the American television station. There's one of them that was showing every morning they will actually say they were putting a face, not just a number to the deaths. And they will identify 2 people from the day before who died. This was America. And I'm watching it. And I'm feeling it. These people, a month ago, a week ago, they were living a normal life going, killed by COVID. And I have to hear somebody in Trinidad and Tobago encouraging people not to get vaccinated because they're healthy and COVID don't form no threat to you. And I have to have political associates, colleagues, whether they're in Tobago, whether they're in Caroni, whether they're in Victoria, whether they're in Diego Martin, encouraging people not to do what the science says we should do to be able to overcome the threat of the virus. And of course, to bring our economy back to anywhere close to where it could be. Because one of the effects of COVID on the economy is unemployment. Big talk in the parliament about unemployment as though we deliberately make people unemployed. And for those of you who are unemployed, and for which that is your most important concern, pandering and misleading you as though something is happening in Trinidad and Tobago as a result of this government mishandling something. Let me tell you what unemployment is like in the region and among ourselves. Unemployment has increased in every country in our region here, except Honduras. Honduras in 2019, unemployment was 5.39%. It is 5.28% in 2021. Go up on the US border and find out where a lot of those people who have left home and crushing down the US southern border, where they come from. And that would have a bearing on understanding why Honduras is the only regional nation that does not show unemployment right now. The other one that is very much like that, didn't show any shift, is the manufacturing Dominican Republic. They have an economy that is largely agrarian and food supply is their business, so they in fact did not have a reduction in employment in there. But Bahamas, employment 2019 was 10.1%. It jumped to 24% this year. Barbados was 10.36%. It jumped to 16% this year. Belize was 9% unemployment in 2019. It is 23% this year. Suriname was 8.95% 2019. It's 11% this year. So when you hear the opposition talking about unemployment in Trinidad and Tobago as though it is something unique and peculiar to us, just understand that they are pandering and hoping that you're stupid, you're uninformed, you're ignorant, you don't know what's going on, and they could tell you that all your troubles is the government. That's what they're trying about. And interestingly enough, at the same time that they are talking about all these things that they want, everything that has to be paid for, they want, because they are panderers. They pander to every sentiment in the country, whether it is conflicting or counterpointing. They pander to every point of view. You want water? I give you water. You want ice? You will get ice. You want snow? You get snow. In the Sahara Desert. That is how they are. Panderers. No fixed position on taking the country sensibly in a reality. So, Abdullah talk about debt. Yes, as Prime Minister, as Minister of Finance, as a government, we acknowledge to you that we have had to borrow. You had to borrow. You hear a lot about the borrowing, how the government borrow, how much. We didn't need her to tell you that we had a deficit of 13 billion. The Minister of Finance has been telling you that every single year. We don't have to hide that. We didn't steal any of it, so we could tell you from day one. The one thing this government is not being accused of by anybody who speaks the truth is that we've been thieving public money. We've been borrowing and spending it on you. We've been borrowing and spending on you. We told you that. On the way out of the door in 2015, without concluding any serious negotiation, they pandered to public servants, conclude negotiations election week, and gave public servants a pay increase, and they contracted the government and the country to that. We had to pay that. That was $6 billion. It was paid. We borrowed money to pay it. We borrowed money and we paid half of it first, and then we paid the other half after. That was news in this country. But today, in all you all talk about borrow and borrow and borrow, that was not mentioned. The billions that we are accused of borrowing, they wouldn't identify that 6 of those billions were to pay a debt that they incurred for you. They wouldn't tell you that. And they wouldn't tell you that NGC had $16 billion in their bank account. I heard her say something today, and I want to ask the Minister of Finance no, because I'm not aware of that. I sign off on the number of times that we take money out of the Heritage Fund. And what the opposition leader said today is not true. It is just not true. It is a lie that is meant to cause you to believe that your government is profligate and your government is reckless. The Minister of Finance cannot take 1 cent out of the Heritage Fund without getting the signature of the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago and the Cabinet. So when you hear them talking about the Minister of Finance, it is the Cabinet that does under this government. And what she said today is a lie, like many others of her statements. Because every time we take out some interest from our earnings, it is reported to the Cabinet. In fact, you have to get Cabinet approval first, and it's reported to the Parliament after. You don't have to wait for no lie from the opposition to find out what has happened to the Heritage Fund. But they want to incite you. They want to make you believe that the government is reckless. And of course, let me tell you how the outside world been dealing with debt, the same debt that we've been dealing with here. There's one university lecturer who told you that our debt to GDP is 84%. And that means that 84 cents in every dollar is used to pay debt. That's what they're teaching in some universities in Trinidad and Tobago. But let me send you, before we close tonight, on this question of debt that the opposition leader today tried to make you figure is something peculiar and reckless about Trinidad and Tobago and its government. I want you all to go to Reuters. You know Reuters is the foundation of news in the world, the most credible news agency in the world. Reuters Business News, February 17th, 2021. At 12:07 p.m. on that day, a writer called Mark Jones of Business published this article. And the article is COVID Response drives 24 trillion, and that's US dollars, 24 trillion US dollars surge in global debt. That is the news on the 17th of February 2021. And the first paragraph in the article says, the COVID pandemic has added $24 trillion to the global debt mountain over the last year, leaving it at a record $281 trillion and the worldwide debt to GDP ratio at 335%. That is the situation of the world. And of course, the Institute of International Finance, the IFF, when there is a global debt monitor estimated that government support programs had accounted for half of this debt. So half of this 24 trillion in that 1 year was because of government support program around the world. And you know which countries drove that figure up there largely? The developed countries. They had the money, some of them printing their own money. Britain, the United States, France, Spain, Italy, they all resorted to debt to fund the response to the pandemic, just as Trinidad and Tobago did. We did it, and we'll do it again to save your lives, to save this country, to save the economy. So when you hear them talking, you have to ask them, what would you have done? Today, after 2 hours of speaking, attacking Faris for an hour, talking inanities and telling lies for the other hour, the opposition leader then said she will now outline her government's program. And I listened carefully. Not a single thing that makes sense in managing your affairs at this moment going forward in this unfinished pandemic. But of course, as we all know, as far as they're concerned, this country will fail so that they could get a chance. Today's performance by my colleague from Superior Opposition Leader is the longest job application I have ever heard. Because all she's interested in is taking you down the road to foolishness and folly and destruction of the nation, so that she believed that in that, like the Pied Piper, you'll run behind her and she become Prime Minister again. But I know that is in your hands. And I know that this country is in the capable hands of the People's National Movement. They must decide which side, which side of the coin in the toss is head and which is tail. It can't be both sides. In one breath, you're accusing us when we tax millionaires on what was called the millionaire tax early in our stewardship. You accuse us of preventing millionaires from spending on other people who are looking for jobs for millionaires. We are the ones who introduced the millionaire tax. We also reduced taxation on persons at the bottom of the pyramid who were earning $6,000 a month. They became tax-free. We then made it $7,000 a month to make you tax-free. Now, they have a continuous attack on people who they believe are doing well in the country. We want the private sector to invest in this country. We don't want our private sector to take our money and go and invest it outside Trinidad and Tobago. So when I hear a Trinidad company is investing in St. Lucia and investing in Jamaica, as they are doing now, it's good for them doing that because we say they're growing, and if they get profits out there, they repatriate some of it here. But we also want them to invest in Trinidad and Tobago. Every time a local company is encouraged to invest in this country, the opposition launches a personal attack on the principals in that company and start talking and making accusations and talking as if all of us are the same. So anytime we talk to a businessman or a local company does something in this country, is because of some deal we made. That is what happens When they say they're weighing our corn in their bushel, that is how they used to behave. So they think that we are behaving so. That is not happening under this government. It's not happening in this country. Businessmen are encouraged to invest. And the government will help them to invest, and we're looking for opportunities for more and more investment. We go to Tobago, a hotel site has been there for 40 years, approved as a hotel site. We can't get an investor, local or foreign, to invest there. This cabinet says go out for RFP and see if anybody is interested. We did so. We got 7 applications, I think it was. We put a team to evaluate it. They came down to 2, and then they evaluated and told the cabinet, this is the best proposal. We now have a $500 million investment by a local consortium in Tobago, and they have a problem with that. And have the gall to come in the parliament today and talking about the loss of Sandals. These are the people, you know, who drove Sandals' family out of Tobago with their stupidness and their lies, and now behaving as though something was lost. We can't lose what we never had. You never gave them a chance to even sit down with the government and discuss terms and conditions. You fabricated all kinds of lies and fooled people and got them in the papers, giving them 2 pages every Sunday to write stupidness, and they have one job to offer you. And when the people leave the country and billing in Barbados, in Grenada, in St. Lucia, in Jamaica, you come in a budget to come and talk about Sandals. But I'm giving you fair warning. That project in Rocky Point, come hell or high water, Tobagonians will have it. And the last thing I want to mention tonight before we leave here is that I notice the opposition leader has launched an attack on the government and the office of the Attorney General with respect to its effort at fighting white-collar crime. I'm putting you all on notice. It is not by accident that the opposition leader is now like a dog with a rag attacking the Attorney General and asking questions about what deal he made with Nelson. You know who Nelson is? Nelson is a British Queen's Counsel. No ordinary person, a British Queen's Counsel who in the hands of his lawyers turns state witness to extricate facts and figures, date and time, telling Trinidad and Tobago, cooperating with us so the police could put in handcuff members of the cabinet of Kamla Prasad Bisesa for public money that has gone missing in the racket. And you hear that from the opposition leader about the Attorney General making deal. Let me ask you all a question. Do you see the American Attorney General making deals with people to turn witness, to get evidence, to prosecute people? But if you didn't, when you come nearer home, you ever heard of a fella called Parmasa? You remember when Malik killed somebody in Christina Gardens, here in your set of fellas? The woman was dead. The police know that the woman was dead. They had a group of people as suspects, but to get them charged and convicted, the state made a deal with Parmasa, one of the killers, one of the buriers. Remember that story? Parmasa came to court as a state witness, gave his testimony, and what happened there? All of them were convicted. Why is Kamla Prasad Bisesa a Queen's Counsel today? Showing out just like that. Story about the Attorney General making deal with Nelson, and she want to know and she want to know. But let me tell you all something. There's a lot that we in the government know that we are not talking about, because they want us to talk about it because that will become their defense. They're looking for a defense to say publicity or political. So we've kept our silence last term, last election, and now, because we genuinely believe that the wheels of justice, they turn slowly, but they do turn. What the opposition leader is doing there in inserting herself into, you heard today, an Attorney General in Trinidad and Tobago saying that this country's government has had to complain about witness tampering in matters of white-collar criminal prosecution. He had to say that today because it is the opposition leader who introduced that topic into national debate. Fact. They are attempting to tamper with the witnesses. And the opposition leader is making statements to cast doubt on the prosecution of people who have questions to answer in white-collar crime situations. Just cast doubt. Create confusion. Give them an argument to argue. And I say tonight, Kamla Prasad Bisesa, Queen's Counsel or Senior Counsel, whatever you are, shame on you. But I give you all the assurance that the whistleblowing legislation that's in the Parliament, that they're opposing, it will be brought to the Parliament and it will be passed into law. I also give you the assurance that the cooperation that we have been doing with foreign countries where people in Trinidad and Tobago have used their office to raid us and to destroy what they're pretending they're supporting now, which is good governance and honesty in governance, that the wheels of justice will turn and it will grind them into the dust. So tonight, as we go home, in keeping with the law, this short meeting is now over. It's the first of many to come, because from here on in, the battle has been joined for the heart and minds of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And we'll be out there every week, every month, every day. And every time they lie to you, we'll tell you the truth. Every time they tell you the country has collapsed, we show you the strong foundation of this country. And every time they tell you that we are incompetent, we show you the success of this country. Trinidad and Tobago is a strong country, is a great country. The people of this country, by and large, are sensible, right-thinking people. And that is why the PNM could have put a budget out today from the competence of those in office that meets the approval of the people of Trinidad and Tobago, that they label it an election budget. Thank you and good night.
Even though the road is long, no matter what come, I know I'm gonna make it. Yes, I'm gonna make it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Trinidad and Tobago, thank God for the PNM and thank God for Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley. Thank you so very much for your presence, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to our viewing and listening audiences. Thank you for your confidence in the Prime Minister and his cabinet and his administration. I want to invite all residents of Diego Martin to tomorrow's vaccination drive taking place at the Diego Martin South Community Center from 9 a.m. You are all invited. If you've not received your vaccination as yet, you are most welcomed to join us. Ladies and gentlemen, get home safely and God bless each and every one of you.